Research on pedagogical agent can be tracked as early as 70s. Ever since that, researchers on the field come with mixed opinion on its usage towards multimedia learning. Among the argument is that it will impose cognitive overload towards learner. This systematic review has been carried out on 17 research of pedagogical agent, and its impact towards learners' cognitive load. Guided by Prisma's statement, using resources from Scopus and Web of Science databases. 3 main themes and 8 sub-themes have been identified on pedagogical agent elements, and its impact on learners' cognitive load. Several recommendations are highlighted related to direction for the future studies where elements in multimedia design principles should be explored more, as it gives positive impact on learners' cognitive load upon implemented in pedagogical agent design. Apart from it, there should be guidelines on how to implement these principles and elements when developing a pedagogical agent for multimedia learning. 1.0 Introduction. Pedagogical agent is an entity that exists digitally in the learning program that serves as a tutor throughout the learning process. Researcher has been giving several terms and definition of pedagogical agent, such as intelligence agent with pedagogical agenda, anthropomorphic virtual character. It may vary in term of form and representation. Nevertheless, it carries the same objective, which is to deliver pedagogical agenda throughout learning process. Research in pedagogical agent can be traced back as early as 70s, where it started from another research discipline, namely intelligent tutoring system. From that, it evolved and equipped with newly added features that distinguish it from intelligent tutoring system. Its roles not only as teacher, but also a tutor, a companion and peer throughout the learning. However, implementation of pedagogical agent in learning does not guarantee significant improvement in learning. Review on pedagogical agent intervention shows that pedagogical agent intervention does not leave significant impact on learning. Even worse, it may hinder the learning process. There are several claims made on pedagogical agent that it imposes negative effect on the learning. Among the effects is it burden the learner's cognitive load upon engaging with pedagogical agent. Cognitive load are types of loads that impose on the learner's cognitive upon engaging with learning material such as pedagogical agent. These processes happened in the human working memory. Cognitive load theory by Sweller are the most common theory used to explain cognitive load in instructional learning. According to cognitive load theory, human cognitive load can be categorized into 3 different loads, namely, intrinsic load, extraneous load, and germane load. These loads will be optimized by human cognitive architecture during learning, to process information before it will be stored in the long-term memory, and become new knowledge. The main objective of implementing pedagogical agent in learning is to enhance learning and improve the learning process. That is why pedagogical agent has been given multiple roles rather than mere tutor. However, an ill-designed pedagogical agent may hinder the learning and defeat the purpose of having pedagogical agent in learning process. Understanding elements and key features of pedagogical agent that cause cognitive overload may contribute to effective implementation of pedagogical agent in learning. 2.0 Pedagogical Agent Research Review. Systematic literature review, or often goes with abbreviation SLR, is an examination of several papers that have been identified, selected and analyzed to answer a formulated question relevant to the research. A set of requirements will be determined to explicitly select type of research and data to be analyzed. A method of analyzing data will be established to analyze finding of the included research. Systematic literature review allows the authors to justify thoroughness of the research and opening to chances of discovering gaps of the research and future research opportunities. Researcher has been investigated and argued on effectiveness of pedagogical agent towards learning. While some researchers agreed that pedagogical agent impose positive impact towards learning, some others might have a different ideas. Thus, There are several reviews have been done on pedagogical agent research studying on its effectiveness towards learning and impact it imposes on the learners. Cognitive overload seems to be a concern on how pedagogical agent may create a drawback in learning. Despite the benefit of pedagogical agent towards learning, it may also create drawback in terms of learners' cognitive load. Efforts to investigate and review the research on what cause cognitive overload upon intervention of pedagogical agent are still lacking in numbers. Developing a pedagogical agent for learning purposes will take up some amount of time and energy from the educator. However, an ill-designed pedagogical agent will hinder the learning rather than improve the learning. Therefore, this review aimed to identify important element of designing pedagogical agent that will contribute to the benefit of learning. This study is vital as it may prevent the pedagogical agent from impose cognitive overload towards learner by eliminating unnecessary element and features in the pedagogical agent development process. Research question was established beforehand, to construct a proper systematic review. Thus, this paper was guided with a research question of what are the elements of pedagogical agent that cause cognitive overload upon intervention of pedagogical agent in learning. The focus of the study was on the elements involved in designing and developing pedagogical agent. The study was targeted on implementation of pedagogical agent in the context of learning as it is the main focus of the role of pedagogical agent. Elements involved in developing pedagogical agent might and might not cause cognitive overload towards learner depending on how the element included in the pedagogical agent design. 4.0 Results. The review resulted in 3 main themes and 8 sub-themes related to the pedagogical agent elements, and its impact on learners' cognitive load. The 3 main themes are multimedia principles, social cues and visual design. The result provided a comprehensive analysis on pedagogical agents element, and its impact on learners' cognitive load. A total of 7 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in United States of America, 2 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in China, 2 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in South Korea, 1 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in Taiwan. 1 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in Turkey and 1 studies focus on pedagogical implementation towards participants in Malaysia. Regarding the years of the article been published, 5 articles was published in 2020, 2 articles was published in 2019, 1 articles was published in 2018, 5 articles was published in 2017, 1 articles was published in 2016 and 3 articles was published in 2015. 4.1 Pedagogical agent element of design. This section concentrates on the pedagogical agent element of design that have been used in the studies and its impact on the learner's cognitive load such as multimedia design principles, social cues, and visual design. 4.1.1 Multimedia design principles. Based on the review, 5 out of 17 articles studied on multimedia design elements that was applied onto pedagogical agent design and its impact towards the learner's cognitive load. Initiative in reducing cognitive load throughout multimedia learning has been a buzzword among the multimedia learning designer. Thus, there are several guidelines and suggestion has been given from the researcher in the fields on how to reduce cognitive load in multimedia learning. Those guidelines may also be applicable to pedagogical agent design as it still can be categorized as part of multimedia learning. Multimedia design principles that have been investigated are by using pacing in the pedagogical agent design, adding cue, motivation, anxiety coping strategy and message framing. Study by Schroeder et al. Shows that by adding pacing and give learner control over the pedagogical agent, helps in reducing the learner's cognitive load. Another study by Dinser and Dogonay also shows that pedagogical agent made up with good multimedia principles give a positive result towards learner's cognitive load. However, the rest of studies that use other design principles such as adding cue, anxiety coping strategy in message framing shows no significant impact on learners' cognitive load. 4.1.2 Social cues. 11 out of 17 articles studied on social cues in pedagogical agent, and its impact towards learners' cognitive load. Social cues derived from social agency theory that was proposed by Meyer, Sobko, and Mortone. Social cues originally were tested using types of voice as social cues, however there is no clear indicator on what can be listed out as social cues. Based on the research by other researcher on the field, social cues can be categorized as cues that interact socially with the learners. Thus, based from the review, there are several types of social cues that have been used, namely, type of voices, deictic gestures, visual cue and type of speech. Based on the evidence, type of voices used in pedagogical agent did not give significant impact on learners' cognitive load, however types of voices used may slightly improve learners' cognitive load. 2 out of 4 research that study on voice shows that using human voice slightly improve learners' cognitive load compared to voice that are made using computer. One of the articles also suggested that using modern voice engine yield better result towards learners' cognitive load compared to classic voice engine. 3 out of 3 articles on deictic gestures shows that there is no significant impact on learners' cognitive load. Types of speech also shows no significant impact on learners' cognitive load. 1 out of 2 articles on visual signaling indicate that visual signaling yield positive cognitive load towards learner, and another article indicate that there is no significant impact on learners' cognitive load. 4.1.3 Visual design. Only 1 out of 17 articles reviewed, studied on visual appearances of pedagogical agent. This article studied on ageism of the agent used, and the result shows no significant impact on learners' cognitive load. 5.0 Discussion. This study has attempted to systematically analyze the existing literature on pedagogical agents element, and its relation to the learner's cognitive load. Pedagogical agent is a medium used in e-learning to deliver learning to the learners. Among the biggest worried of the implementation of pedagogical agent in learning is that it may cause cognitive overload towards learner. A rigorous review from 2 main online databases have resulted in 17 articles related to pedagogical agent, and its impact towards the learner's cognitive load. The result indicates the element of pedagogical agent design and its impact on the learner's cognitive load. Within the scope of this review, 3 themes and 8 sub-themes emerged. Multimedia principles, social cues and visual design are the 3 main elements used to develop an agent and have been studied its impact towards the learner's cognitive load. Despite that claim made on cognitive load that it may hinder learning by causing cognitive overload towards learner, there are still few research made to investigate and identify pedagogical element that may cause cognitive overload towards learner. Among the article reviewed, the most element that have been studied is social cues. Social cues have always been a popular element in pedagogical agent making, as the pedagogical agent itself often primed with social agency theory that led to the implementation of social cues in pedagogical agent design. Although there is no specific indicator to define types of social cues, researchers understand firmly the concept of social cues and managed to come up with several types of social cues to be implemented with pedagogical agent design. Types of voice used as social cues may influence the effectiveness of pedagogical agent and may impose different kind of cognitive load towards learner. Thus, voice that can build good rapport with the learners work more effective and give better result. 5 out of 17 articles focuses on multimedia principles and its relation to the learner's cognitive load. It is no doubt that good multimedia principles can lead to more effective learning design, not only on pedagogical agent but other multimedia learning content. Therefore, the review shows that implementation of good multimedia principles onto pedagogical agent yield positive impact on the learner's cognitive load. However, There are several multimedia principles as suggested by Meyer and Moreno was not tested in pedagogical agent studies. 6.0 Future direction. There remains much that is unknown about pedagogical agent principles that impose cognitive overload towards learner. As mentioned previously, majority of the paper studied are focusing on implementation of social cues on pedagogical agent and its impact on learners' cognitive load. Only 5 papers focus on multimedia design principle on pedagogical agent. Future studies should consider more on exploring various multimedia principles that contribute to the creation of pedagogical agent for multimedia learning. From the finding, good implementation of multimedia principles yield positive impact towards learners' cognitive load since pedagogical agent is considered multimedia tools for learning. However, empirical studies on multimedia design theories and principles that suits pedagogical agent are still low in numbers. Discovering more in this area might lead to more information on better pedagogical agent design. Prisma has been used in this review to rule out necessary information for the research. Based on it, this research manages to extract necessary principles and elements used in designing pedagogical agent for multimedia learning. The information on proper principles and elements in designing pedagogical agent are normally lingering around social agency theory, and there are still few guidelines provided in designing pedagogical agent. Future studies should focus more on the elements and principles in developing pedagogical agent and suggests guidelines in developing one.